Welcome, Mindy Aisling, the Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, today we're going to be having you on as a life and leadership coach. You do so much more than that, and we're going to be talking about your history, your journey, and how do you help people. But I do want people to understand that when it comes to finding the right coach, when it comes to finding the right person in your life, you need to understand that everyone has their own experiences in the world. And today we're going to be looking at your upbringing, looking at your circumstances that kind of got you into the field of life coaching and leadership coaching, because you do have a unique story. And I want to share that with the world because it's going to give people a sense of hope, a sense of that they can too overcome what they have went through in life. In your own words, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help them?
My name is Mindy Aisling, and I am a life and leadership coach, as you said. I am certified by the International Coaching Federation, and I'm also a licensed mediator, which really goes hand in hand because we deal with a lot of the same communication types of skills. So I'm really happy to bring both of those together. And I've been coaching since about 2010. I absolutely love the work. A lot of the work that I do is grounded in authenticity because I have found both with myself and with my clients that when we know who we are and we own our own stories, that is when we are the most powerful in our life.
The story that people tell themselves, is it a reality or is it something that is often made up?
I think that most of the time, the stories that we tell ourselves is made up. And I think it's our job to learn how to recognize what is the data and what is the story we're making about that data, because that's our point of power. We can change what we tell ourselves about the data of what's happening in our lives. And sometimes that can make all the difference.
There is a quote I heard today. They say our biology is not our potential, right? Or anything, but we can become guaranteed in the sense of what we put forth in our day. All right. Because if we just look at who we are as a person, we look at our circumstances, our upbringing, sometimes people they give themselves the circumstance of, oh, my mom was this way, my dad was this way, everything around me was that way. But yet they can make the change. How do we get people to stop thinking of their circumstance, but start to think of more of in their power?
Well, I think part of it is what you said in the beginning. We see what we surround ourselves with. Something as simple as watching inspiring true stories or reading books or discovering for yourself that other people can do it so you can as well. You're not defined by the hand that you were dealt at birth. Yes, of course, you're going to have to navigate within that, but really everybody's potential is limitless.
And what is your thoughts on limiting beliefs? Someone might have a limiting belief from a parent, a teacher, maybe even themselves. What is your notion on that?
I think that is the crux of everything. And I think that that goes so deep and can get so nuanced. I mean, you can have a story about why somebody left the toilet seat up instead of putting it down, and that can change how you treat that person. And then your relationship. I mean, all the little tiny things in our lives and the big things, right? We can have weird passed down beliefs from our religion or our culture or parents or kids on the playground when we were six, and I really think that it's our job to sort through all that stuff, right? It's clutter inside of us. And the more we sort through and sort of take out the trash, the more that we can show up in our lives in a really not only influential way, but powerful way to ourselves, where we feel grounded in who we are and we feel powerful living our lives day to day.
And what was your upbringing like? Because I know when we talk about limiting beliefs, right, it's something that we give ourselves and it's something that is just a notion oftentimes that we can get rid of, that we can change, we can adjust. But when we look at someone's upbringing and how they did it, it's almost like a step by step process of look at this person succeed, look at this person overcome a hardship in their life. And it's like when we see someone do something, it becomes more doable. For example, if something has never been done in the world before, everyone's going to say it's impossible, right? The limiting belief is there, but it's going to take someone to do it to finally adjust and say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to dare greatly. And they do, and they succeed. And then everyone else that's going to be subsequent to that succeeds also. Getting into the mindset of how you grew up and how you got over your limiting beliefs and then how you succeed today.
I think what you said is absolutely true. And you put it so well. Thank you. I would say the first piece of my story is poverty, going to the food bank, having the church deliver food, sometimes living in our car for a couple weeks between places. And when you grow up in poverty, what you think is attainable is very small, right? I mean, when I was a kid, my dreams were like, have a job that pays the bills, right? Like on time every month. Like if I could achieve that, that'd be everything. And in regards to this specific belief system, I have realized over and over again, oh my gosh, I'm pushing against the limits. I own my first home. I own my second home. I have a successful business. And I keep having to go back to this origin story and expand it again and again. I've heard you say this in your other podcast. Going to a coach or doing personal development work isn't something that you do once and you're like, sweet, I'm done. It's all good. It is a lifelong journey because our limiting beliefs and our stories and our makeup, it doesn't go away. We shift it slowly. And as new things arise in our lives, or especially if we're traumatized again, that can like reinvigorate old ideas. So I'd say that's my first one. And then I don't know what else you want to touch on. I also went through a domestic violence marriage my first time around. I was in a car accident that left me in a hospital bed for 3 months. I've had these traumas every decade of my life. And yet I still find myself sitting here at 44 being grateful for everything. And I think all of us have that opportunity, right? It's like, does your trauma break you open or does it make you close down? And that's the difference right there, right?
I think when someone sees someone else had a trauma, they can say, oh, it's okay to have issues or problems or to be in this circumstance. Because sometimes I think it's like, I made a mistake, I tripped, I have fallen. They're almost embarrassed to take further action. They don't want to make the calls. Fear stops them. And the call doesn't just have to be to business. I'm talking about life
Yep.
because life is calling you every single morning when you wake up. Do you hit the snooze, right? Or do you say, you know what, I'm going to answer this call and I'm going to give every ounce of myself today? A lot of people struggle with giving themselves a push in the morning, right? That push, that drive, especially when things are going bad. As you said, when you were younger, the poverty, right? You saw the limit, right? Your dream was maybe just paying the bills, the 9 to 5 or the rat race. And that would have been subsequent to a good life. But then you said, I'm going to grow. I'm going to keep on nourishing myself and my life and my ambitions. And then you see that your dream that you once had was a small dream. And then you're like, I'm going to give myself a bigger dream. I'm going to have, again, 2 houses, be more successful in my business. I'm going to keep on growing. How do we get to that mindset? How do we get to a place where we have dreams that scare us because many people have dreams that are reachable and attainable?
Yep. I think that the very first sort of seed of this is self care and self talk. You hear these words all the time, but people don't really understand the power behind talking to yourself nicely. If you have an inner dialogue, which I struggle with, my brain's a real jerk. And every time you're stupid, you're a fraud, I go, no, I'm not. That's your thing. I'm going to do this. Right. And slowly changing that is huge. And then with self care, making sure that you have time alone, that you journal, that you walk, that you're not rushing through life so quickly that you can't access your like inner compass. And I think once you begin to talk to yourself a little nicer and make time to access your inner compass, then you can start believing. And that's sort of the first step.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say like self-care, but in the sense of how we talk to ourselves, because I think people are just, the word I want to say is just used to people talking bad about them, right? Oh, you're stupid. All right. Oh, you'll never be anything. And then we just kind of shove it off. But we should really pay attention to those words and not so much to let them affect us and be anchors in our life, but to understand that this is the type of person that's in our life. We have to understand if we have more positive people in our life, it becomes easier to have self care in our own mind. So it's like, okay, we can do this, especially if you have people around you saying you can't do it or saying, keep on going, right? You might have fallen this time, but you can win the next time. And even if you fail and you fail and you fail, you have someone who can be supportive. And that's why I love coaches so much, because they are going to be your biggest cheerleader, even when you feel like you're going to lose the game. And so it's important that we understand that talk, right? Is the talk more of an affirmation, a mantra, or just recataloging of how we grew up and then giving ourselves a new type of, I guess you could say, script that we follow?
I think all of the above, but mainly I would say, script or like playlist. Like I think of my thoughts as like my mixtape, right? It's the soundtrack of my life. And I think that getting control of that and recognizing that there's a separation, my brain is just going to say stuff all day and it's going to say all sorts of crazy stuff. It's not a reliable leader of my life at all. And once I sort of learned to put it in its place and not think that everything I thought was true, then there was a little crack for me to get in there and go, okay, well, if you're not always telling me the truth, maybe I'm not stupid. Maybe I'm not a fraud. What's really happening here? And kind of dive into that deeper curiosity.
Yeah, the brain is going to be our biggest enemy, I believe. My yoga teacher said it so well one day. I was in Bikram class, and she said, the greatest or the biggest wall we will ever climb is in our mind, and we put it there. And I said, whoa, that's so powerful because I am my own enemy. It's not so much of the people around me or the people who said I couldn't do things. Now the ball's in my court because I decided to take ownership of my life. And I think right now we live in a society where people neglect to take ownership. They are built on excuses, they're built on passing off the blame. How can we start to become more in line to our leadership qualities of taking ownership, of being trailblazers, of going in first? And if we fall, we can accept that and we say, oh, I messed up there.
I think that there's this real cultural aversion to being selfish. And this idea that if you own your life and you take responsibility and you tell people your needs and you build boundaries, that somehow makes you a difficult person. And so I think that's part of what you need to get over is understanding that no, actually, when you take care of yourself and you become quote unquote selfish, you're actually of most service and value to those around you. So I think that's one script that really needs to be flipped. And then the second piece is, like you said, failure does not define you. In fact, it is a key part of success. And unless we accept that, we're always going to be avoiding failure because as humans, we want to be loved and accepted and cherished. If we think that the way to get those things is to be faultless, we're going to live a really small life. But once we realize that, oh, it's actually how I get back up, it's my resilience that turns other people on and opens doors, then all of a sudden we can have a very different path.
Early on, when I started my coaching business, people would have a hard time with that, right? Just looking at, oh, let me fill up my cup first, and then I can help everyone around me because they thought it was selfish. They said, this feels selfish to me, especially parents. Parents mean well. I know you love your kids. You want to put them first, and I want you to put them first. But you would do so much better if you are as close to 100% as you could be. Sometimes you're not going to be, especially with kids. You never know. They could be sick. They can have a lot of things going on in their life, especially teenagers. There could be a gambit of issues. But if you can show up in your day, they're going to show up in their life too. Because what kids do, whether we want them to do it or not, they look at our life as a parent, as a teacher, as a coach. They look at you and they say, okay, this is the person that's going to be educating me, teaching me, supposed to be guiding me. If you are a person who's disheveled, you're unorganized, they're going to see that. When you're asking them to take out the trash or to do something, they're going to say, why? You don't even show up in your life. And when we apply that bit of self care, right, that 100%, we are going to give the appearance and then also the action of showing up. Because if you show up, they're going to see, oh, mom and dad shows up. And it's important that kids especially see it, but then the people around us see it too. Because I think when you are a person who doesn't show up, people are maybe instinctually it happens. They feel like, oh, this person's a good person to have in my life because maybe I can take advantage of them. And I know that's a far stretch here. I know it's not the case, but it's just kind of like the instinctual thought that's sublying the mindset, the subconscious or unconscious, maybe. What that does there, it shows that, okay, this is who I'm attracting in my life. All right. I'm attracting people who are looking for handouts or people who are not pushing themselves. Because if we look at the world, what, 1 or 2% wildly succeed, and then maybe 30% of the world probably do really well, and everyone else is just kind of like in limbo, in dire straits, right? When we fill up our cup, this is the whole aspect of it. Fill up your cup, you're going to easily be in that top 30%. And then you build yourself every single day to get to that 1, 2%, right? If you want it, right? You don't have to want it. Some people are very happy being a stay-at-home mom, or just having a family, living in a cabin with a cat and a dog. It depends on what success is for you. And so I wanted to ask, what is success for you? What does success look like in your life? And what were ways that you started to achieve it early on, maybe in your 20s and then 30s?
I would say now to me, success looks like flexibility, the ability to go with the flow and sort of lean into when I'm feeling creative or lean into when I'm feeling a certain way, because that's when I'm at my most powerful. And also flexibility to be with my son and my husband, my family. That's a huge important thing for me. The second thing is I've always been a seeker, and I've always thought that human beings were just the most fascinating thing. Anytime that I can have work that aligns with philosophy or personal development or growth, or work with other people and talk to other people about those subjects, that's what lights me up. That's another piece of success for me. And then I would say just my close relationships, inner circle, friends and family, and having the time to show up in those spaces. And I think that that definition took me a long time to develop. Coming out of my childhood, my definition of success was being safe, having four walls, having enough food. Then my definition of success was being really successful or having like a certain sort of accolade. And then I realized, like, okay, no, the first one was fear, the second one's ego, right? Like, slowly got through. And I think now I'm getting more rooted into, okay, this feels more authentic to me, this definition of success. And you know what? All the other ones were perfect for me to go to, and they led me on my path. So, no shame to any of my other definitions. But how beautiful is it that in the human journey, we get to define success again and again and again? I just think it's amazing.
Flexibility and success, I think, is what many people are looking for when they say they want money, when they say they want a big house, when they say they don't want debt or credit card debt or whatever. They want the flexibility to do the things that they truly enjoy, but they feel like they're stuck because they have to make ends meet, right? They have to put food on the table. They have to keep the lights on. They have to keep a roof over their head, right? We have to cover our basic needs, our necessities. And so we do that to a level. And the brain does something amazing. And it's not really amazing because it's actually like a detriment to success. It's like, all right, you got all the things that you need, right? You got your food, water, clothes, shelter. All right, cool. We don't have to exert anything more because now we got our basic needs met. Why do you think the brain gets in our way from our true success of being flexible, as you said?
Well, I think that you have sort of that hierarchy of needs, the original Maslow's hierarchy that is met or not met. But those of us who are trapped in that, it's really challenging, right? And then when you get beyond that and you get to actually self actualize, it's a different set of skills, right? For me, getting through that pyramid and establishing safety was a lot of like hard work, nose to the grindstone, pulling myself up by my bootstraps. And then the next level of becoming was more inside. It was spending time quiet, it was working less hours. And so I think because different stages require different skill sets, some of us are just, it's like the only tool we have is a hammer, and you keep using the hammer on everything and it doesn't work because what you really need is a screwdriver. Right? And I think that's where coaches like you and I can really become valuable, because we're like, hey, you want to try the screwdriver here? Right? And somebody might not have even known that tool was possible before then.
Yeah, it's the aspect of more tools for the toolbox, right? You can go to the store, the hardware store, and you can get a, as you said, a hammer and put it in your toolbox. There's plenty more room in that toolbox for other tools. So when you have some home maintenance to do, some home repair, for example, I needed a socket wrench the other day, and I have a universal socket wrench, but the universal socket wrench was just too big for the bolt I was like trying to fasten. Sure enough, I had to go buy a whole socket set. And I wasn't mad that my universal socket wrench didn't work. I got it because it's one fit all thing, I thought. But then it's like in life, sometimes things are not going to be one fit all. As much as you want it to be, as much as you wish that everything was perfect, you wish your hammer can do all the things a screwdriver can or a drill can. But sometimes you need to have those different tools. And sometimes we have to have a different mindsets to navigate how we're thinking, because our mind can go down some of the darkest paths in our life. When you were young and you saw your poverty, sleeping in your car, right? Your mind might have been down a very dark path. It could have been, right? I'm not saying it was because I don't know your full history, right? I don't know what you went through. But sometimes people, they see that dark path and they say, what's the point? They say, okay, well, like, why bother with these other tools? Because I'm struggling with the hammer right now. Like, I don't know how to use it. We do at some point have to learn how to use the tools that we have gained. And then we have to start to look for other tools to enhance our arsenal. That's why, as you said, coaching is so important, because you learn that, yes, you have tools. Yes, those tools are important right now. We can learn how to use them better. But then let's start to add these other tools in our life, right? And it could be small changes. It's not like we're going in and we're doing an overhaul of your whole entire life to try to make you this person that maybe is far from what you really truly want. Because in a sense, people don't really know what they want. We were saying, we're growing up in our 20s, the accolades, the house, the car, everything, right? But then when we're older, we're like, the family, the flexibility, that becomes more important for us there. And I think that's a huge aspect to coaching. But there's a fallacy of coaching, right? Number one, it could be expensive. Number two, it's like therapy on steroids or whatever. It's like, what do we do to help people understand that coaching is not just something where you go talk to somebody, but where you go to somebody to implement massive action in your life?
I think that shift is changing culturally, especially with the younger generation. And when I mean that shift, I mean understanding that I don't wait till I have to go to the doctor and the doctor gives me drugs. I go to the gym, I do yoga, right, like it is pre-care. And there's no shame about that. It's an investment in self. And I think the same way, whether it's psychologists or therapists or life coaches, that's becoming more normalized as something that you just do to have a good life. Because when you're stuck in your own brain, you can't see your own brain, right? It would be like trying to get dressed for work without a mirror. How great would that work? It wouldn't work very well, right? Well, you're getting dressed for your life. You need a mirror there. And that's what a life coach or talk therapy provides you, is that mirror so that you can brush your hair and put your lipstick on and look great or feel great going out into your life.
That is a great analogy, right? You are preparing for life and you need that mirror, that reflection to say, okay, am I going out disheveled or am I going out as a million bucks? It is so important that we have that there. But yet, even then, someone might get coaching, right? I want to change my life. It's similar to New Year's resolutions. They are gun ho about it, but then they start to fall off. How do we keep people on track to their goals and potential?
So, first, I would say if there's someone who is a client seeking a coach, interview a lot of coaches. Find somebody who your gut is like, I feel this person, because that match is the most important. And there's no shame in that. Like, if someone's not a match for me, that's great. That's fine. They're a match for, it doesn't mean it doesn't reflect on me poorly or them poorly, right? So, like, find your match because that makes all the difference. And then I think it's up to us as coaches to help our clients understand, okay, hey, look, this is how it's going to be. You're going to go on a high for a couple weeks. Then you're going to think you're wasting your time. You're not going to want to show up to session. But when you show up, it's going to be the most powerful session you had. Then you're going to be on a high again, right? And help them understand that this personal development journey isn't a linear line. It's a squiggly line that goes all over the place and has the vast spectrum of emotions. And that doesn't mean it's happening wrong. It actually means it's happening right.
There was a client I had, he was having some issues, and we had developed a whole plan, a whole thing that we were going to implement. And the first week was really good. Second week was pretty good. But the third week, right? It was like, oh man, like I'm falling off. And he was having a hard time. And so when it was time for the coaching call, it was like I really don't want to do it because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And it just turns out that coaching call was not about our goals, our ambitions. It was just talking about how we feel, right? Like, how are we adjusting? What type of problems do we have? And it was more of a conversation, more so than of, all right, these are the things we have to do. And then we need to do them. So this is the timeline. This is how we're going to do them, step by step process. It was like, let's take a step back. And it's important when you have a coach that they can take a step back and they can say, okay, I see where you are right now. You might be a little bit tired. You might feel a little bit down for some reason. Let's be where you are today rather than where we think, or rather, I think you need to be. And I think that makes a great coach, or the difference from a good coach to a great coach. They can see their client and they can say, I understand where you are today. Let's work on that part of you.
Yes, I love that. I always tell my clients every week we're going to make a homework assignment. And if you do it, great, you're closer to what you want. If you don't do it, great, because we just found something behind that. And that's something, whatever it is, tiredness, overwhelm, procrastination, that shows up in a lot of areas of your life. So that gives us the chance to sort of peek behind the curtain and go that level deeper and really address what's stopping you from getting your goals. Because we thought it was this, but when you didn't do your assignment, it let us know that it was something else, which is great information.
Yeah, it's like when you're younger and you get a bad grade or something. I don't know if you ever got bad grades when you're younger. I got a lot. And it was always like I had to go home and get it signed by my parents. And I was always afraid to get it signed because it was just like, oh, what are they going to think of me and stuff like that? I'm going to get punished. I really didn't get punished, but it was something that I didn't want to do. But yet, like I hope they can come to me with any grade that they get and we can look at it and say, okay, well, we didn't succeed here, right? We didn't get an 80 or whatever is our minimum. And we can work on those last 10 points together. Let's see where you need some help. And I think perfection is often the crux in many people's life, right? If they can't make it perfect, if they can't do it when they feel ready, that stops them from saying, you know what, I'm going to take action because I'm not ready. I'm not at 100%. They say, well, I'm going to wait until I'm 100%. And I wanted to get into the last question, the fallacy of time. I have a blog on this coming out, and it's going to be talking about how everyone thinks they have time.
Yes. Well, I can loop back in my accident here because that really did it for me. I was driving in the middle of the afternoon at 2:30 with my husband and my son, and an intoxicated driver crossed the center divide and hit us head on. I was airlifted to the trauma center where I was in a hospital bed for 3 months, and I almost died. Like, I should have died. I've had doctors say over and over again, oh my gosh, right? How did you survive this? And what I can remember the most when I was sitting there, recovering in the hospital was just what you said. I thought that I was going to have forever. I thought I had this long life before me. And what am I tolerating? And it just became so much clearer to me that I didn't have time to tolerate things that made me feel bad. And I certainly hope that other people don't have to go through what I went through to learn that. But all we have is the present moment, and showing up fully in this moment, even if it's scary as hell, that is the best that we can do.
In this moment where we can make a change in our life, it might be a scary step. It might be an uncertain step. You might have given yourself procrastination cues. You'll do it eventually. You do it later. You do it tomorrow, but tomorrow is never promised. What we do have is this moment, that breath you just took in, feel it. Breathe it in again. Breathe a new breath in. Let it out. A new breath in, right? That means you're alive. That means you still have time. And we can't put that into the future. We have to say, I'm going to take ownership of my life today. It doesn't have to be immediately today, but we give ourselves a step-by-step process to get there. I like to call it micro-stepping. We are going to say, okay, what's the smallest thing I can do in order to make some forward progress? Maybe it is going to be writing down, Mindy's number or her email or her information on her social media. And tomorrow I'm going to, the first thing in the morning, I'm going to send her a message on social media. I'm going to say, hey, I listened to you on coaching in session. I just want to have a conversation. And that's where it begins. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be a financial commitment immediately. And I know that goes initially into people's heads. Oh, this is going to cost me so much money. Oh, this is going to be so difficult. I have to go through my dirty laundry and all the issues and problems that I've been avoiding. Eventually, maybe, yes. But we begin with what is in front of us. the first step. And I think our conversation today is going to be akin to so many first steps that people can understand. They can look back at their life, they can see where they have been going, they can see where maybe they can use a little bit of improvements. And then right there, they can say, a coach, I believe, is going to be the best thing in my life today. I loved our conversation today, Mindy. And before we go, I would love to get some final words and then for you to tell the audience where they can find you.
Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. I've loved it. The audience can find me at my website, mindyaisling.com, or on any socials, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, all under my name. So I'm pretty easy to find. And I share a lot of my own dirty laundry on my socials because I want to make it clear that this journey is for everybody. And I'm not sitting on some high chair and my clients below me. We're sharing this human experience. And I think that would sort of be my last little words to put out there is I've been coaching since 2010. I've coached people all across the world. And it is my experience that every human deals with the same stuff. It doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, you're male or you're female. It doesn't matter. All of us struggle to be loved, struggle to communicate our feelings, struggle to know our purpose, right? Like these are universal human traits. So you're in good company. You are not alone if you're experiencing any of this human stuff. Congratulations, you're just human.
And today was a very human conversation, right? We talked about the ups and downs. We talked about the difficulties, the obstacles we give ourselves. And it's going to be many emotions and feelings and mindsets that people are going to feel on a consistent basis. And it's important that people understand that, right? They are human. They can make adjustments. And as I said earlier, I'm going to make it very easy for everyone. All her links are going to be in the description box below. So I encourage everyone to reach out to Mindy and begin to take control of your life, whether that be in leadership, just life general, or being a more true, authentic self.